Before U42, mechanical Acuity was used heavily in 4-man content and faster trial fights like Triplets and Chickens, and also Ash Titan from Rockgrove. This was because you could get insane burst damage from Acuity using Creeping Ravage health pots, making Acuity's bonus always stack to 5x no matter what. This works because Acuity requires you to get non-crit hits, and Creeping Ravage health pots cannot crit. However, with Gold Road and U43, ZOS has made a change to where Creeping Ravage health pots can no longer proc sets or any other effect. This change effectively made it so that Acuity could no longer stack to 5 stacks unless you had really weird stats that would really get screwed up after the Acuity proc ended, so if you didn't kill anything within the Acuity proc, it was just never worth using anymore. This also effectively lowered the overall uptime of Acuity, as you can no longer get 5 stacks, so you'd lose 2 to 3 seconds every time you procced Acuity. So after U42, I basically moved on from the set, as I didn't really find a purpose of it other than doing very, very quick boss fights in which that you don't really even need Acuity for anyway. However, with U42, this interaction didn't technically ever go away, however until recently I had not known this. A friend of mine showed me an image of people talking about it, and they were bringing up the fact that Oblivion damage cannot crit, which in hindsight was super obvious but never really made sense at the time. It just so happens that with Scribing there are 2 skills that can do Oblivion damage over time. These skills are Wield Soul and Soul Burst. To get this to work, all you need to do is get the signature script Anchorite's Cruelty. This allows the skills at a cost of a soul gem to do Oblivion damage over time. This allows Acuity without doing anything weird to your stats to reach 5 stacks again. With the explanation out of the way, I really quickly want to go over the differences in the skills because I feel like one is actually quite a bit better than the other. Firstly, Wield Soul. Wield Soul, like Soul Burst, doesn't really have much besides Anchorite's Cruelty, as all the affixes are basically useless for most classes in an Acuity burn. The affixes for Major Savagery and Prophecy and Major Brutality and Sorcery will let you take some of the skills off your bar, however most classes have skills that give these buffs that you already want. So realistically, you probably won't ever need these, and the other affixes don't really help with anything. The major difference between Wield Soul and Soul Burst comes from Anchorite's Cruelty actually. Wield Soul's Anchorite's Cruelty does 1 damage every second, meaning Acuity will stack much faster. While this sounds like a good thing, this comes with one problem. Acuity stacks once every second, so if the Anchorite's Cruelty stacks at a weird time and in between ticks, then you can actually end up not getting the full 5 stacks from this skill. For me, because I don't have it set up how I would 100% want it, this is actually somewhat common of an issue. I like to have these skills on the back bar, so you lose 1 tick no matter what, and if you switch bars too quickly or get a bad Acuity proc, then you'll end up with weird procking conditions and you might not get the full 5 stacks. On to Soul Burst, which in my opinion is the far better option. Like Wield Soul, the affixes are basically useless. Minor Courage would have been good, but you can't really proc it as Minor Courage would only be given to you. With this in mind, also the tank will be providing Minor Courage and AoE with either this skill or Xena's if they're an Arcanist. If you want a recommendation for which affix to use, I would just go with Minor Resolve to get some armor, but that's just because I'm lazy. Going over Anchorite's Cruelty, instead of triggering every 1 second, it does damage every 2, and the knock-on effect is Acuity takes longer to stack, however you will almost always get the 5 stacks. I think I've only had it mess up once, and that was because I switched bars halfway through and accidentally lost one of the ticks of Anchorite's Cruelty. Just because I thought it would be funny, here's some of the bosses you can Acuity burn pretty easily without much setup. But yeah, that's about it. I'm just gonna let this little video play in the background of a bunch of bosses you can Acuity burn. Making this video was kind of weird, as I actually had a couple friends tell me not to make it because they want this to live, and the more people doing this, the less or the more likely it is to get nerfed. But I don't think it really will because it's not as powerful as it once was. The fact you can't proc a bunch of sets is kind of sad because you lost a lot of damage from those sets. Prebuff sets like Dom House and others like it were pretty powerful in very short fights, as they would contribute quite a bit of DPS to your overall damage total or whatever you would want to call it, but Acuity being back to 5 stacks just makes it so much better to use, and realistically you still lose a GCD to this skill, so it's still worse than the health pots, but yeah. As you can probably tell, this last part isn't really scripted. I just have kind of a little bit of notes that I want to go over. I'd want to start making some class guides for beginners and some more advanced stuff for tanks, but I wanted to put this out because I think it's kind of important to know that Acuity can still get there, and there's kind of a weird interaction with it. But thanks for watching, and I hope you found something helpful in this video or just enjoyed it.